My name is Buket Kara, and I am a research fellow at the Center of Resilience for Social Justice at the University of Brighton. And I am also in the research and evaluation team of the Resilience Revolution, which will be the focus of today's presentation. My colleagues Mirka Flag and Pamela will also here today to monitor the chat and help us out. In the Resilience Revolution, we adopt a nothing about us without us approach, and we are committed to co-presenting our work as young people, parents and carers, practitioners, and academic researchers. However, on this occasion, this hasn't been possible due to college and work-related commitments. Hence, I'll be presenting alone. I'm very excited to share our revolution with you today, which is a whole-town approach to build resilience in young people by, with, and for them, while also promoting social change and transformation. And we hope that you will find this way of working inspirational. In the presentation, I will briefly tell you about the context in Blackpool, and then share about Blackpool's Resilience Revolution program with its aims, key principles, and approaches adopted. I will then provide specific examples of our work with young people, families, and broader system in Blackpool, highlighting the importance of co-production. And I will briefly explain how we evaluate the impact of this complex intervention. I will finish with some take-home messages and discussion points. Blackpool is a seaside town in northwest England. It's known for Blackpool Pleasure Beach, an amusement park with roller coasters and various entertainment options. Blackpool is a very popular holiday destination for local tourists, particularly for lower or middle-class families with children. It is full of colorful lights, pop music, laughing families and children having fun. But on the other side, Blackpool is one of the most socioeconomically challenged areas in England, with high levels of poverty, unemployment, raising physical and mental health issues, and low educational outcomes. This context creates a challenging environment for young people to thrive and reach their potential. Therefore, Blackpool is implementing the Headstart program funded by the National Lottery, along with 5 other local areas across the UK. Blackpool Headstart was launched in 2016 by the partnership of Blackpool Council, the Centre of Resilience for Social Justice, and Boing Boing Resilience Community Interest Company to address the mental health needs of young people in Blackpool. This was just the start of what later became a social movement. We had to find a way of helping people to acknowledge this program as something different than a project to refer young people to. We needed to find a way of creating a place where people could be equal partners, co-leaders, so to address the power imbalance. We wanted to address the social inequalities in our work. And we learned about the history of social movements driving change in broken systems. So we co-produced a manifesto for individuals and organizations to commit to taking action as a part of social movement. Young people wanted to call this movement as the Resilience Revolution. And in 2019, at our Resilience Get Together event, we shared our manifesto. This picture was taken at that event. Becoming the Resilience Revolution was a collective decision of everyone in the program, and this enabled the members to identify and internalize themselves as the active leaders of the Resilience Revolution. It also created a very strong collective voice to tackle the issues important for the local community. We become more revolutionary rather than trying to adapt to existing systems which have been mostly broken. And we believe and observe that the synergy and possibilities, both at the community level and the local authority level, significantly facilitate the sustainability of our work above and beyond the funded Head Start program. We are co-leaders of the Resilience Revolution, working in partnership with academics, young people, parents, carers, clinicians, practitioners, and youth workers. Our work is by, as, and with disadvantaged communities. We all work together to build resilience in young people and in the community to make Blackpool a better place to live and thrive. The overarching aim of the Resilience Revolution is to support young people's mental health and well-being. For this, the program aims to embed resilience building approaches across the whole area of Blackpool and to mobilize a social movement of collective action to tackle structural inequalities. Altogether, the aim is to help individuals to beat the odds whilst also changing the odds for the whole community. I highlighted some concepts that are fundamental to the resilience revolution, such as resilience, across Blackpool, collective action, or tackling structural inequalities. These are all related to key principles and approaches adopted in the resilience revolution. And in the following slides, I will address these, starting with resilience. Through the decades of research, the conceptualization and operationalization of resilience have evolved from an individual trait to a complex, multidimensional process. While the early resilience research emerged around 1970s and focused primarily on personal qualities and characteristics that correlated with better than expected outcomes in individuals experiencing adversity, the articulation of the ecological systems theory by Bronfenbrenner in 1980s brought greater recognition of the power of the family, community, and the wider context in resilience research. This brought a socio-ecological approach to resilience, which focused on the interaction of personal qualities and characteristics and the ecological features in a given social context and culture. And this led to an emerging consensus that resilience is a multidimensional, complex, and dynamic process. More recent approaches to resilience incorporate a social justice lens, which recognize that inequality and social disadvantage contribute substantially to many adversities to which individuals, including young people, are exposed. And taking a public health perspective, this approach argues that interventions will not be successful or their impact will not be sustainable unless the structures that create the adversities in the first place are also challenged. With this perspective, resilience can be considered as overcoming adversity whilst also potentially changing or even dramatically transforming aspects of that adversity. And Blackpool's resilience revolution has been designed and led with this perspective. The resilience revolution is underpinned by 7 fundamentals. These are the principles that guide all our work, collaboration, and partnerships. Firstly, co-production, which is at the heart of everything that we do. In the resilience revolution, we aim for community development and sustainable change. Our work is asset-based, concentrating on the strengths of young people, families, groups, and organizations to build their resilience, resolve their problems, and deliver their own solutions. We are brave and innovative. We want everything to be based on evidence and theory, but also to be innovative, creative, fun, and have the backing and drive of our young people and partners. We seek to transform systems to work with young people, not against them. Systems transformation is essential for us to achieve our mission with the resilience revolution, for remodeling our systems so young people get the right support at the right time and in the right place. And our approach is rooted in social justice thinking. This means that it not only recognizes the impact of inequalities on people's lives, but supports people to make resilient moves for themselves and others to address these inequalities. Whole town approach. We adopt a town-wide, holistic approach to embed resilience building approaches across the town and create a whole system transformation. And finally, research and evaluation. The resilience revolution is based on extensive research and evidence base collated by the Center of Resilience for Social Justice. And we are drawing on this evidence base to test and learn new ways of working. All of the projects in the resilience revolution are grounded on the resilient therapy, which is developed by Professor Angie Hart and her colleagues. This is based on the resilience literature, practice work with very disadvantaged children and families, as well as the lived experiences of individuals and communities. And through various sources of information and knowledge, a framework has been designed, which is called the resilience framework. It includes 42 resilient moves under 5 components: basics, belonging, learning, coping, and core self that are relevant to the resilience of individuals. And each component offers simple, everyday actions. We call them resilient moves, which aim to help individuals become more resilient. This is a very helpful and accessible tool translated into multiple languages, and child-friendly adult and family versions are co-produced. They are available for use on our websites. Overall, Blackpool's resilience revolution is at the intersection of individual development and well-being, as well as system theories, which makes it a complex intervention program. Complex interventions are widely used in public health practice and in areas of social and education policy. They are usually described as interventions that contain several interacting components. For example, different interventions or targeting different outcomes, or including a diversity of groups and organizations. And in the following slides, I will briefly share some practice examples of our work to illustrate the complexity of the resilience revolution. Starting with the parent and carer team, who provides training to parents and carers and work co-productively with services in Blackpool. We will then focus on a couple of youth-led initiatives aimed to embed resilience in the town and in schools. These are exciting examples of how young people can initiate and execute projects, working co-productively with practitioners and decision makers in Blackpool. And then I will talk about some universal and targeted support we offered for young people to improve their resilience and well-being. Parents of the Revolution is a group whose work focuses on 3 key areas. One of them is engaging parents and carers to build their resilience and mental well-being. For instance, they have adopted the resilience framework and created a family version of it. And now they are using this version to develop and deliver training and workshops offered to parents and carers in Blackpool to build their resilience. They also offer opportunities for parents and carers to improve their skill sets, enable work experience, and foster future employability. And they are working with social and healthcare workforces that support families to ensure that the voices of parents and carers are heard in service development. For instance, they started supporting the Blackpool Families Rock initiative to work with children's social care in Blackpool, and through the Empowering Young People and Families initiative, they prepared a big plan to support young people and families who might be waiting for mental health services. You can find the details of these initiatives on our websites. And the Resilience Revolution also supports youth-led initiatives such as Young People's Executive Group and YPEC. YPEC is consisted of Blackpool's young people who co-lead the Resilience Revolution. They are involved in the decision-making process. They co-produce and co-design intervention programs and campaigns. They co-produce and approve important documentations such as annual reports. They co-organize events and deliver keynote speeches, and they are the essential part of the Resilience Revolution. I will skip these parts because of the time restrictions, but one of the youth-led and executed projects is the Resilience Pathway. You can check our website for details of this. Another one is Blackpool Beating Bullying campaign. They created the UK's first co-produced charter mark that developed or offered a set of criteria that a school should meet in order to prevent bullying. And the charter mark has been rolled out across all Blackpool schools in order to reduce the number of bullying incidents. Another exemplar work was the Inclusion Not Exclusion campaign, because school exclusion rates are significantly higher in Blackpool, doubling the national average. So the infographic has been co-produced, and now young people are co-designing an intervention training for schools to reduce school exclusions. Beyond this, as part of the Resilience Revolution, young people, parent carers, practitioners, researchers, and other partners work together to co-design and deliver several targeted and universal intervention projects. Some of these projects targeted young people with different needs and conditions, such as pupils transitioning from primary school to secondary school, or young people in care system, or young people at risk of or who are self-harming, or with special educational needs and disability. Overall, over 1,000 young people have been supported through these various projects. And we also offer some universal support across Blackpool schools. For instance, a 10-week resilience building course to all Year 5 pupils, reaching out to over 3,000 pupils. And we also implement the academic resilience approach, which is a whole school approach in all Blackpool schools that involved all members of the school community to promote resilience across the whole school. And you can find the details of these projects and approaches on our websites and annual reports. Designing and researching complex interventions, such as the resilience revolution, can be quite complicated with respect to their multifaceted, multi-layered nature. In this part of the presentation, I will very briefly focus on how we research and evaluate this complex program. For a proper, adequate evaluation of this intervention, we first need to provide a clear picture of the intervention context, and we need to show whether the expected amount of change in outcomes was evidenced at the end of the intervention. We also explain to what extent the process of change during the intervention followed the expected mechanisms of change, and if there are some unexpected changes or mechanisms, we need to provide some evidence or explanation for those. And we need to evidence the potential long-term impact of the interventions. To cope with such complexity, we collect as varied and detailed data as possible. We use a mixed method approach and collect both quantitative and qualitative information. Examples of the quantitative data include the number of young people attending a project, or some education data like pupil absences or exclusions, or surveys measuring well-being, resilience, self-esteem, self-efficacy, among other important things. These surveys help us to identify any change in young people's mental health and resilience at the end of a project. We also use qualitative data such as interviews and focus groups to deepen our understanding of what may have driven the change in the outcomes, what could be the underpinning mechanisms. First, I will give an example to show how we evaluate the sub-projects of the resilience revolution. And in this case, it is Back on Track. This project provided targeted support to young people in care system who struggle in mainstream schools. Our practitioners, we call them the resilience coaches, worked alongside young people and across systems such as foster family or schools or social work to support young people to remain in mainstream education where appropriate. To evaluate this project, one source of quantitative data was Strengths and Difficulties Questionnaire, and we conducted statistical tests to examine whether young people's scores changed before and after they took part in the project. And overall, our analysis showed improvement in the difficulties that young people experienced and impact of these difficulties on their lives. While working with the resilience coaches, young people set and worked towards some goals. These goals were related to the areas that they wanted to improve and were in line with the resilience framework, such as learning strategies to help feel calmer, which is an example for the coping aspect of the resilience framework. Before and after taking part in the project, for each goal, young people rated how close they feel themselves to reach their goal. This was another quantitative data that we collected, and the analysis revealed that at the end of a project, young people rated themselves closer to reaching their goals. Or in other words, there were significant improvements in the areas that are related to their resilience, that they wanted to improve. And we also used education data to compare young people's attendance and exclusion rates before and after taking part in the project. And for instance, before the project, before taking part in Back on Track, 5 pupils were excluded for a total of 18 times. But after taking part in Back on Track project, there were no cases of exclusion, which was very promising. During and after the implementation of the project, we conducted triangulation interviews with a randomly selected young person and their carer and the resilience coach. to explain how participating in the Back on Track project helped young person. And here we present some quotes from these interviews. In general, young person expressed how they were able to build better relationships after taking part in Back on Track. While their carer highlighted that receiving support from the resilience coach did wonders for their child. And the coach observed that young person felt empowered and felt more confident and worthy, and this led to many changes in their life. Altogether, the quantitative and qualitative data helped us comprehensively evaluate the impact of Back on Track, and we follow similar approach to evaluate other sub-projects of the Resilience Revolution. But beyond this, we are also keen to evaluate the impact of the program, the Resilience Revolution as a whole. And we do this by using the value creation framework developed by Etienne Wenger. This enables integrating learning from the different program components and evaluation designs in order to understand how social learning creates different types of values. This includes things that work, but also things that didn't work. We call them negative values. I have listed the types of values here, like orienting value, immediate value, potential, applied, realized, transformative, enabling, and strategic values. And I cited the reference for you to look at and find out more about this approach. I will not go through each type of value in detail here, but I will show you some of the emerging results from the program level evaluation. Here is a list of example findings for each value that we identified in our latest annual report, which is available on our website. And critically, we can see that transformations are happening at both individual and system levels. For instance, at the individual level, as the realized value, young people have reported improved well-being, self-esteem, or coping skills, or better educational outcomes. And at the system level, we have identified transformation in schools, as well as social and healthcare services. For example, the Blackpool Beating Bullying Charter has been embedded in all schools in Blackpool, dramatically transforming the experiences of young people in schools. Blackpool's young people and community have also been a part of the research and evaluation process of the Resilience Revolution. And an important part of the partnership work between the university and the community members is to build capacity in the community and enable young people and adults to learn new skills, gain new experience, and improve their future employability. And as the university part of this program, we offer opportunities to young people as well as adults, such as apprenticeships, one-on-one or group-based training in research, analysis, and reporting skills. Being part of the research team, we even had a group called Revolution Researchers who carried out their own research projects, and we supported them. Co-producing local, national, and international presentations and academic publications.
Buket, just 2 more minutes, please.
Yeah, our presentation is coming to an end, but before we move on to some discussion points, I want to summarize the key points that we would like you to remember about our work in Blackpool. So as part of the Resilience Revolution, we are taking a social justice approach to resilience. We work co-productively with members of the community to support them to beat the odds, whilst also changing the odds by challenging the system that have created inequalities in the first place or worsen them. And we work towards system-level transformations. We do this by embedding the approaches of resilient therapy throughout the services and organizations. And this also helps developing a common approach and common language across service providers. And finally, it's also essential that we collect evidence and provide evidence base for our approach. And I briefly explained how we collect and analyze data, both linked to specific projects and across the program. And finally, I'd like to leave you with a few questions that you may keep in mind while planning or improving your work, developing your work to support young people's mental health and well-being. How the approach we talked about in this project, in this presentation, would work in your local area? How would you engage and involve young people and other stakeholders, and to what extent? How would you progress towards social transformation and system change? And how would you aim sustainability? These are questions from us to you. Alternatively, I can answer a few of your questions in the remaining time. And thank you very much for inviting us and listening to our presentation. And you can access the resources and find out more about our work by following the links from this slide.